Now this is a backtesting I ran on GBPUSD on a 1 minute time frame actually. So what happened is that I actually went to the higher time frame to mark out what I need to mark. I used the 1 hour time frame actually. Yeah, so what happened is that I did the backtesting in a time window of 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. That is the time window that I used. In my previous video, I used a time window from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. But in this particular one, I'm using 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. right? So this is the time window I used to mark out everything on the chart before I started with the backtesting that I have to do. Okay, so this backtesting is it started from January 1st. Okay, so this is January, we are in January. I started from January. Currently we are in March, so I started the backtesting from January. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you parts of the backtesting that I did. Of course, I will not be able to show you all the 3 months backtesting in this video. So let me quickly just take you through this particular one over here and also this one right here, okay, within the time window from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. all right, so let's start from the first one over here. So let me just zoom in and let's see what we're going to get over here. All right, okay, I think over here you can see everything clearly. So let's look at this over here. We see price moving sideways, it's kind of consolidating over here. Then all of a sudden we see that price moved up. Okay, so once price moved up, let me just zoom in a little bit again so that you see what I want to talk about over here. So one thing that we need to note is that I'm looking out for order blocks, valid ones. Okay, I'm looking out for valid order blocks, and I also have to consider inducements and change of character, because if I'm not able to identify a valid change of character, that means I'll not be able to know when price even change direction or is going to a different way apart from its initial movement. Okay, so yeah, this, when you look at this, okay, price started moving this way and then went up. That is, we are having a bullish momentum over here on a 1 minute time frame. But when price got here, okay, we have a pullback over here, and this pullback area, it's our possible inducement area, but we cannot call it inducement if price has not break below it. So we have to wait for price to come and break below this red line that I've drawn over here. Okay, this particular one over here, price has to break below it before we know that what this is an inducement. So we see price moved up over here, then it came down. You will see price came below it, right? It broke below it. Now we now have a valid IDM over here. IDM simply means inducement. Okay, now once we have this IDM over here, what we have to look for is we have to look for our order block. And from the previous lessons or the things that I've done on this channel, the videos, you realize that what an order block must have taken out liquidity from the previous candle and must also have a fair value gap. So if you look at this particular one over here, let me use this. So we are using this blue candle as our order block because this particular black candle is within the shadows of this particular blue candle. So the focus is on this blue candle. What are we going to do over here is to check if there is indeed a gap, right? So let's say from this candle to this blue one over here, there is a gap. I think let me zoom in a little bit. Good, let me come over here. So if you look at the wick over here and the wick of this particular candle over here, there is a gap over here, right? So that made this particular bullish candle to be considered an order block, right? So let me zoom out a little bit again. So we have to mark it out, and indeed I've marked it out. This is it. Okay, I've marked it out and I extended the line. Now the next thing that we have to look for is to wait for price to enter, then we take a trade from there, because price has already broken this particular has taken this inducement out over here, right? So the next thing that we can also be waiting for is we can wait for price to come and take this particular low out. When price take this low out, we will have what we call change of character, right? But for now, let me focus over here and explain this to you before we move on, right? Based on my knowledge and in what I've studied so far, this is what I'm trying to explain over here, right? So we wait for price to enter here, then we take a trade, right? So ideally, all right, you see price entering over here and it closed just below this particular order block, and from here you can take a trade, and when you take the trade, you leave your stop loss just a little bit, you know, above this particular high. I mean, this particular order block, your stop loss should be a little bit above, let's say somewhere here, to protect your trade. Okay, then your first TP going to be somewhere here, then your second one will probably go down and look for the previous low on either M15 or H1 time frame. Then you target that low as your second TP, right? So now, since everything has been played out, at least up to where we have our change of character area, what happened is you could see price reacted at this zone before moving down. Now, within this reaction, what another thing also happened, we've seen that this particular black candle has taken out liquidity of this blue candle, right? And that liquidity has been taken out. The next thing that we've seen is there's a fair value gap. I think, let me zoom in again. There is a fair value gap over here, meaning there is an imbalance, which is making this particular order block a valid one. I think, let me just, all right, I hope now you can see it clearly. So this particular order block now is a valid one. Now if you see price came down and moved up a little bit, it entered this order block, then we started selling again, right? Started selling again, and down we go. Up to this point, we have another valid, you know, order block over here because it took out liquidity and there's a gap over here. However, price didn't enter into it quickly. But what we can do is to just use this particular line. I'm using MT5 platform actually. This is not TradingView. If you were to be TradingView, you would have seen, you know, a lot of different stuff over here that I can just extend. So I'm using this line to indicate or to show if price will come into this particular order block in the future. So let's see. All right, I'm just going to leave it like that. At least for this time window that we have over here, price didn't come back into it. So I think I'll delete it so that our chart do not look a little bit clumsy, right? I'll have to delete it and delete this one. So of course you miss a trade over here, there's nothing you can do about it. You just go, and when you come here, we have a valid order block over here because it took out liquidity over here. It took out the liquidity of this blue candle, and of course there's a fair value gap over here. Then what happened next? Price went back, tapped into it perfectly, and is sold off, right? It's sold off. Okay, so that is it for the first part, which is from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. right? Let's look at the next one, then we call it a day. Yeah, so over here, what do we see? We see price in an uptrend. All right, the movement over here is an uptrend one. Then the next thing that happened is price came down. All right, so how do we manage to catch this trade? Okay, let me zoom out a little bit again. Right, so we have so we see the movement over here. We are having higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low vibe over here, and look at this, right? Look at this. Price went up over here, came down. So this is our potential area of inducement. So I think, let me just mark it somewhere over here. All right, our potential area of inducement. So we'll be waiting for price to break below it. All right, this is not okay, it's straight, a little bit straight now, right? So price went up again. All right, then it came and broke below this particular line. Now we call it inducement because it has been broken now, so we can call it an inducement, right? And what we have to do is to quickly go back and check from the leg that caused the inducement to see if you identify if we are going to find any other block within that particular leg. And of course, we found an order block over here, right? So what do we have to do? We have to just mark it out like I just mark it out, then anticipate price will come into it. From there we can take our trade depending on the reaction that we got from price over there, right? So what happened is that price came down, then went up, but it did not tap into our order block. So of course we are going to miss this particular trade. There's no way I'm going to tell you that I'm going to take this trade if it did not enter the order block. So of course we are going to miss out on that particular entry. Now that is not all. We also have another chance to enter the trade, but look at this. All right, you see price over here. Let me zoom in a little bit again. You see price over here. Let me push this up. All right, I think that's a little bit better. Right, you see price over here. It took our liquidity of this, and this candle is within the shadows of this particular one. So we are considering this particular candle as our order block because there's a fair value gap over here as well. So we mark it out, and when price come back into it, then we do what? We take a trade. So what happened is, when you enter a trade over here, of course my TP is just going to be a little bit above this, above here, right? This is where I'm going to put my TP. I say my TP, sorry, my SL stop loss. This is where I'm going to place my stop loss. That means I'll enter the trade somewhere here, and my stop loss will be here. That is going to be like 3 pips stop loss, right? That's too small, you might say, but yes, of course that's what I'll put over there. And of course price is going to take me out. I'm going to run at a loss because price actually came to kick out at the exact point that I thought of placing my TP. So yes, you can see price came here. That means it will definitely take me out of the trade, right? But that's not all. We still have an opportunity to take something from the market. So we see this movement over here. Let me show you something. All right, this movement over here is a typical, bullish movement, right? It's a typical bullish movement. Oh, I just deleted that. Meanwhile, I don't want to delete it. All right, but don't worry, no problem. Since we are done with it already, no, there's no problem. This is a typical bullish movement over here, and price movement down here is a pullback, a valid one for that matter, because it took our liquidity. So we mark out this particular pullback, we mark it down like this and anticipate price to break it. So once price break it, we'll call it what? An inducement, right? So once we have this leg which break or which cause the inducement, we now have to go back quickly, look for a potential order block within this particular leg. So over here, when you come, we have this nice order block over here which I marked out. Then we have the fair value gap, which is confirming that this order block is a valid one because it took our liquidity actually, right? So we see price came down, and all of a sudden it moved up, tap into it nicely, then boom, down we go, right? Okay, yeah, so basically that's something I feel like sharing with you. Although there are tons of this thing over here that I can be showing you right now, but I think it will be too long, the video will be too long, and I wouldn't like the video to be too long like that, right? So anyway, if you are new here, my name is Godsway, and I'm on a journey to become a profitable forex trader within 120 days, and today is the 100. So let's see how everything is going to climb us at the end of the 120th day. I hope we will end on a good note, right? Did I just say we will end? Of course we will not end. This is a forex trading journey. We are not ending, right? We are going to continue with this journey till right? I'll see you in the next video. Bless up.